A few weeks had passed and Stan and Max rolled out of New Harlech sheds. Stan had dragged the nervous 8F to Stowmouth where Max apologised to Bride and he was reintroduced to the Stobble Valley fleet. With my permission, Stan and Max were now resting and sleeping at Retford Junction sheds, which suited them just fine. Hardwick and Hercules welcomed them with open arms and the group of four soon got on famously. Max reminiscing about old times on the wartime Great Western Railway with Hercules, who was only too happy to take a trip down memory lane. Other than the continuing divide between the Midland engines and my own fleet, things were looking up. Passenger numbers were growing, my goods customers were increasingly happier with the deliveries, and morale with the engines was at an all-time high. Bride was an outlier in this regard. Although she was overall mechanically sound, ever since her first breakdown outside New Harlech, small things kept breaking, and these small things soon added up. So much so that BR took notice.
You want what? No, you can't have her. No, I can't just use another engine. A week? What if I refuse? You most certainly won't, young man. Good day to you.
I wonder what that was about. He said something about her. Something to do with Bride? Could be. Oh, here he comes now. He looks angry. Must be serious. You two, any idea where Bride is? Quickly! She should be at Stowmouth shed, sir. Thank you. I suppose it was always coming. One of only 3 of her class left in existence, the rest having gone by the end of the previous year. However imminent it might have been, that phone call I received that afternoon shook me to the core. Swindon had recalled Bride for scrap. I'm so sorry, Bride. I tried to argue the case, but it was too late. They've made up their minds.
I understand, sir. I have had a good run, met plenty of engines, done some incredible things.
You absolutely have. You've been a constant on this island for decades, and I shall always be grateful for your huge contribution to the railway's fortunes.
You're incredibly kind, sir. When do they want me?
The end of the week. The disposal details are still to be finalised, but I should imagine they'll want you picked up from Retford Junction.
Of course, sir. I shall endeavour to make this week my best.
We'll give you a proper new Wessex send-off, don't you worry.
I'm sure you will, sir. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have the Stouffville flyer to take. I'm not done yet, you know.
Yes, of course. I'll see you this evening sometime.
You sure will, sir.
I watched Bride pull out of the shed and off to the station, backing onto her coaches, ready for the off. Rook came across to the sheds to resupply on water. Are you okay there, sir? Never better, Rook. Don't think me rude, but I have a train to catch. I rushed off towards the station and made Bride's train just in time. Not knowing when my next chance would be to ride behind a train hauled by her, I ensured I took the train through to Retford before alighting and heading back to Castle Stowell on a local train. Bride had been my most trusted engine, always faithful, never too scared to speak her mind, and only ever wanted best for the railway and the island as a whole. She appeared on the island during a period of huge change for the railway. She'd seen the demise of the hunters, the pre-grouping locos, the wartime locos, her siblings, and now it was her turn. When she returned that evening, she didn't return to the sheds immediately. She went to the sidings that overlooked Stomouth Bay. There she sat, almost transfixed on the horizon. It's a pretty view, innit, Bride?
Oh aye, it is, my dear.
I love the way the castle is lit up at night, and the way it reflects in the bay.
Aye, Stomouth Castle, a permanent, immovable landmark. What I'd give to hear the stories the castle has seen over the years, Rook.
It's almost as permanent and immovable as you, Bride. You'll be here long after the rest of us are gone.
Rook, could you keep a secret, just for now?
Of course I can, Bride.
Well, Lord Stavell informed me this morning that BR have recalled me to Swindon.
Oh? To be allocated at Swindon Shed?
No, not exactly.
For a general overhaul?
No, Rook, to punch my proverbial ticket.
What? No.
Yes, Rook, I finally run out of luck.
But Bride, you can't go. I won't let you.
I'm not sure either of us have a choice.
What am I going to do without you, though? What's the island going to do without you?
I'm sure the next young up-and-coming local will arrive and the cycle will continue.
But we don't want anyone else.
I know, Rook, I know. But this is the way things have to be.
Not for you.
I've watched engines come and go from this island. Watched whole fleets of locals get scrapped when newer, younger engines have come.
I don't want you to go.
I'm not going immediately.
Come back to the shed. It's warm there.
I think I'll stay here, Rook. I want to make the most of this view before it's too late.
Then I'm staying with you.
Suit yourself, my dear.
Bride,
Yes, Rook.
what was the island like when you first arrived?
Now, that's an interesting question, young man. It was an era of big change across the whole country, but especially here on New Wessex.
Rook and Bride chatted for a long time. Bride talked and talked till Rook had to leave to sort wagons for the midnight goods. Bride waited a little longer before retiring to the sheds. A couple of days later, I came down to Stomouth Sheds early to speak to Bride. Good morning, Bride.
Hello, sir.
I've got a treat for you today, if you'll accept.
A treat? For me?
Yes, indeed. I've organised with Alfredson Shed and they've agreed.
Agreed what?
How do you fancy going to London?
London? That's ever so far away.
Don't worry, you'll have help.
Help? A double header?
Yes, indeed. Report to Alfredson Shed as soon as you can. I walked away and allowed Bride to collect her thoughts before she too took her leave from the shed and headed towards Alfredston. She arrived to find the Wessex Wyvern coaches in the platform and Alfredston Cathedral waiting for her. Good morning, Bride.
Hello, Alfred. Are you feeling better now? I heard about your incident.
Absolutely. I've been given back my old motion which was refurbished and I've never been better.
That's excellent to hear.
It is indeed. Now, this is more about you today. How are you feeling?
Well, I'm excited to say the least.
We better go. We don't want to be late. You're up front.
Me? But...
I'm your pilot loco today. You're the main attraction. Positively beaming, Bride backed down onto Alfredston and their train. She had not been to London in many years. The guard's whistle blew and they were off. Go on, Bride, this is your moment. Bride's exhaust beat echoed around the city as she dragged the long, heavy train out of the station, Alfredston helping slightly to get the train underway. They made good progress. A group of engines stood at Retford Junction watching her go past. A quick breather at New Harlech and they were off again. Once they left Newport, they were well on their way. London beckoned. They soon passed Swindon Works. Bride shuddered at the thought of what would happen in a couple of days when she arrived there. Meanwhile, back on the island, a rather weird train was crossing the viaducts. Seaforth seethed in the platform at New Harlech. This is ridiculous. I can't believe I'm being held here for a goods train of all things.
Thanks for waiting, Flapface.
They're not flaps! The weird consist continued to Alfriston, where the locos dropped the wagons in the goods yard.
Ah! Thank you.
The trio of Dexby locos made their way to the roundhouse one by one, and were soon settled in their respective shed roads.
It's been 30 years since I last sat in this shed. It's not changed one bit. Don't you worry. We make sure Snovey keeps it to our liking whenever we come here. Although it isn't him in charge of the shed anymore, it's his son, Robert. Nothing like a bit of nepotism. It is his family's railway after all. I think he has a right to run it how he pleases. If Robert can run Alfredston Depot, he'll have no issues running the entire network when he's ready. He must be getting on himself. I don't think he was even born when we were kicked off the island. He was born the year after you hunters left. He is the eldest of the three. What can I say? Lord Stavell got busy. Where are the other two then? Maddie lives over on Porthston. She runs a business over there. And Fred is somewhere in Pennsylvania, last I heard. He's out there scouting some sort of hush-hush project that Monty has up his sleeve. Oh, it can't be that hush-hush if you know about it. We're Dexby engines. We see all, we know all. Fair point.
It was at that point that voices could be heard coming from the office, and out emerged two men. We just need to send it to head office. Part 2 I'll put into operation later. I'm going to take a trip to... Oh, hello, Captain! Admiral? Ballast delivered safely then?
As safely as possible for us, Robert.
If I look out the window and the yard is on fire, then...
Why can't we get ballast from a normal place? Why Dexby? I mean, Porthston next door gets ballast from Dexby, but even then it's the wrong colour and they've got their own ballast refinery. They say, what's the science behind that? Coming soon.
Nothing as bad as that.
Glad to hear it. I hope you'll help yourself to extra coal before you leave, lads. I'll have my cleaners come round and give you a polish too. Only the best for Dexby locos here.
A home from home here, Wyvern. I'll have to come here more often.
Robert Stavell left the Dexby locos to their chat and disappeared rather quickly towards the station. Meanwhile, Bride and Alfriston had arrived in London bang on time, and they were soon sitting at the coaling stage at Old Oak Common.
That was exhilarating. It really was. I've not had a run like that since I was a wee lass.
Just proves that you still got it in you.
Thanks to Lord Stovale's care.
It's such a shame to see you go. An engine in your prime, cut short, after a performance like that.
It's the way things have always been, Alfred. One day you too will be replaced. I pray that day will never come for you, but it is inevitable.
I say, Bride, Alfred, hello there.
Hercules? What a surprise!
I thought I heard your dulcet tones. I'm glad Lord Stavell's idea pulled through.
You knew about this?
Who do you think suggested it, my dear?
Oh, Hercules!
Come with me, Bride. I've got someone you should see. You're not the only saint in London today. Bride followed Hercules to the huge roundhouse. There, sat in plain view, was Saint Sebastian.
Hello, Bride, my dear sister.
Sebastian, what are you doing here?
Hercules said you'd be here, so I came to look for you. He told me everything.
So you know, this is my last week.
Indeed I do. It's why I dropped everything I had in my non-existent hands and came here as fast as I could. Hercules knew you'd be opposed to coming if you knew I was going to be here too, but I wanted to see you one last time, make amends and such, before it was too late.
Well, you should know I've never approved of your recklessness, Sebastian.
I know, Bride, but please. I know I haven't exactly been the perfect brother, but you have always been the perfect sister that I looked up to and admired. And I can imagine no greater pain, not even one I'd wish on my worst enemy, than knowing my sister would go to the cutter's torch, hating me to her last rivet. So please, Bride, it's not in my nature to beg, but shenanigans aside, I do care for my siblings, and for you especially. So do you think you can find it in you to forgive me?
I don't hate you, Sebastian, you know that.
I know you don't, but please.
Alright, Sebastian, I forgive you. But you know I won't forget what you did.
I'm not asking you to forget, Bride. Lord knows what I've put you through over the years.
Good, then it's settled. Now tell me about your adventures then, come on.
Right, well, Mr. Start, that crazy BA start of a manager, we go way back. A couple of years back I got acquainted with him, and well, the rest is history, you might say.
The two saints happily conversed for the rest of the afternoon, but soon it was time for Bride to leave again.
Well then, Sebastian, it's been amazing to see you again. Your adventures certainly astound me, but I'm not surprised at all. What a life as you've got ahead of you.
I mean, it's not exactly a patch on your adventures. Maybe it's good to have an end.
Indeed, Sebastian, all good things must come to an end. Now, I promise you'll look after Helena for me.
Don't you worry, dear sister of mine. She's quite safe with me.
Farewell, Sebastian.
Goodbye, Roberta. It's been good to see you again. I'll miss you, you know.
Bride paused at those words. She smiled and left the roundhouse, ready to make her way home. Alfriston pushed hard on the way home, giving Bride a real send-off for passenger workings. They were a blur as they made their way through the English countryside and into Wales. They crossed over the viaducts onto the island. Here you are, Bride. You're home. The duo finally arrived into Alfriston, right on time. Before she left for Stowmouth, she pulled alongside Alfred.
I must thank you from the bottom of my smallmocks, Alfred. Today has been the best day of my life. Most exhilarating and exciting.
The honour is all mine, Bride, but I've got a small question to ask.
Ask away, my dear.
Why did Saint Sebastian call you Roberta?
I'll tell you, if you promise not to tell anyone.
Of course.
Bride of Lammermoor isn't my name. Well, not my first name at any rate. I used to be called Roberta. A long time ago. I was renamed when I was rebuilt, and Bride has been my name ever since. Only a few others know this.
Well, that's a turn up for the Bucks. Even at this late stage, you're still full of surprises, Bride. Or should that be Roberta?
Either one you like, Alfred. Anyway, I better get going to Stowmouth. I don't want to keep my crew out longer than necessary.
So this is goodbye?
Let us say farewell, Alfred.
Farewell, Bride.
I wish you all the luck in the world, my dear Alfred.
Bride steamed away, slowly making her way back to Stowmouth. She arrived at the sheds where a few of the other engines were waiting for her arrival. How was that then, Bride? What was London like? How fast did you go?
Slow down, not so many questions, young'uns.
Bride.
Hello, sir.
Good evening. I hear your trip was a success.
Oh, yes, sir, it certainly was. I've not felt that good since I was a young engine.
Fantastic. I pulled out all the stops to get you there. I'm very glad it paid off.
It did indeed, sir.
Now, I don't want to put a damper on this evening's festivities, but BR have come through to say they want you on the evening goods on Friday night. You'll be dropped off at Swindon en route.
Sir, if I may, today has made me realise something.
Oh?
Yes, I want to go out on my own terms. If I am to go to Swindon, please let it be under my own power. I don't want my final journey to be a sad state of affairs. I'm a strong engine, a proud engine. I will take myself to my fate.
I could feel a wave of emotion come over me as she said this. Very well, I shall make the arrangements. Friday night you shall steam out of this shed for the last time, and before you go, I'm going to get you repainted and cleaned. You can't be going off to Swindon looking all dirty now, can you?
Oh, sir, what can I say?
You don't have to say anything. It's the least I can do for you after all your years of hard work and loyal service.
Thank you very much, sir.
Once your crew have finished the day's disposal, Rook, yes sir, will you place Bride into the back of the shed for her repaint? Of course, sir. I turned on my heel and left. Rook soon had Bride placed into the back of the shed, and that night she chatted away with him, Ben and Rod till one by one they went to sleep. Over the next 2 days, Bride's appearance changed, and on Friday morning I was ready to reveal her to the rest of the engines. Bride, will you come forward, please? Bride pulled herself forward out of the shed. She stood glinting in the sun, wearing a fully lined Great Western livery, brass and copper reflecting the morning's light. The other engines let out gasps of wonder and emotion. Now, you'll stay here for the day, watch and rest.
But, sir, what about my trains?
Don't you worry, I've got that sorted. He positively jumped at the chance to help out during the week, and he's more than happy to help out on a more permanent basis till we find someone to fully replace you.
Oh, who is it?
Wait and see. I smirked as the other engines got to work. Bride dozed in the sun as she watched the harbour and the railway hard at work. She was happy, despite what would happen at the end of the day. It was sometime around midday when Bride heard the sound of a couple of locos heading towards Stowmouth. The weird duo backed into the sheds. North Star brought with him a loco that Bride hadn't seen in many years.
Wyvern, is that you?
Yes, indeed, young'un. It is I.
Whatever are you doing here?
Mr. Dex, we finally managed to get that huge ballast order delivered. Train was so large I had to be drafted in to help, and I'm glad I was, as we heard on the grapevine through our many, many sources, that you were going to be withdrawn.
You should see the state of Alfriston Yard. Pilot is literally having an aneurysm.
What the fucking hell are you, you great gangly fuck-knuckle cunt greasy-haired shitbag? Fuck you.
Yes, and what an oddball he is. Whilst he's having fun with that, North Star and I decided to come down and keep you company for the afternoon. Gives me an excuse to see the branch again. It has been 30 years since a hunter has last been down here, you realise.
30 years? Is it really? Goodness me, how time flies.
I thought we could talk about our first day on the island. Remember when we were the island's premier express locos, Bride?
Noi, I was the line's premier express engine, thank you.
Until you crashed into that trainload of Tonks ballast wagons.
That was a simple and innocent bit of corporate sabotage.
I remember the only bit of trouble you got into was for Mr. Dexby scolding you for getting caught.
Never mind the 30 dead passengers.
They brought a ticket. They knew the consequences.
Where did you think you were? The 1850s?
Considering I hadn't even been built then. No. And if I may get back on topic, And I remember a sad day that was the full Great Western takeover of the island's railways. Oh, we hunters had run the line for almost 25 years on our own, which was a real wretch when we left. Although we did our best to send a message to the Great Western, Reading has never seen so much carnage before or since.
Remember that we've been working alongside you chaps for a few years before your departure, though. We made quite the team.
Well, of course, back when North Star here was in a proper shape, not this bloated bodybuilder style he's got going on now.
Hey, I've been given all the mod cons. My classmates who didn't get converted are all but gone now, so I'm lucky to still be around. At least in this shape, I'll survive to fight another day.
I remember that first day. I'd recently been rebuilt to the shape and wheel arrangement.
And your accent hadn't changed.
I only felt it appropriate to change my accent in accordance with my name change.
Remember when you sounded like a proper farmer, lass?
Only too well.
Go on, give us a peek of that old accent again.
I can't. It's been so long since I last spoke like that.
Go on, bride.
It'll still be in there somewhere.
Of course it is, me darlings. One never forgets their heritage, of course.
Now that takes me back to the 20s.
Look at us three. Imagine our past selves seeing us now. Of course, bride, you haven't changed per se, but Wyvern, your livery has changed countless times since, and I'm... Wyvern?
Wyvern! Oh, Lord, look what you've done. You've reminded him of the time he was given a logo.
No, not again! Please make it stop.
After 10 minutes of talking Wyvern down from the edge of the dock,
I've done it before and I'll do it again.
Bride and North Star managed to persuade him to return to the shed, although he was still muttering under his breath about his pain. They continued chatting for the afternoon, swapping stories of the Dexby Railway's adventures and the recent events on the island, which greatly interested Wyvern, especially considering, during this time, Bexford Cathedral was running perfectly and seemed to not have developed any of the faults of his brothers. North Star thought it was something to do with the fact that all he hauled was four-wheelers, but Wyvern gave him a look.
I will kill again. You're not the first engine I've put in the ocean. Admittedly, the first 3 times were me. But you just ask William. He'll tell you Lorna Dooney never saw me coming.
North Star remained silent for a good while after this outburst from Wyvern. The 3 engines, although the conversation may have told you otherwise, were enjoying their time together, and before long it was time for North Star to return to Alfriston.
Well, bride, I guess there's no putting this off any longer. We've had a good run, haven't we both? We've seen a lot, done a lot.
Oh, aye, we had the best of times. I wouldn't change it for the world.
I will say goodbye to the rest of the hunters for you. They are all extremely upset to see you finally go. They tried to get Mr. Dexby to buy you, or at least kidnap you, but that has not been possible.
It's absolutely fine, Wyvern. I've come to terms with this. I'm going to do this on my own terms. Lord Stavell has seen to that. This evening, I will make my way off this island for the final time.
We respect you all the more for it, bride. If I see you outside Swindon Works on my travels, I'll be sure to whistle my hellos.
That's very kind of you. Now away with you. You've both got to keep the island going. Keep the heritage alive.
The 2 locos said their goodbyes and departed for Alfriston once again. Later that evening, she heard the unmistakable sound of a Stanier hooter, and into sight came Stan, who was hauling her express service back from Cardiff. He backed into the sheds a short time later.
Stanier, what are you doing?
I'm taking a trains, Bride. I hope you approve.
You really offered to help?
Of course I did. I have a huge amount of respect for you, your line, and Lord Stavel. I couldn't sit idly by and watch him struggle without you.
You really are full of surprises, my dear.
It's nothing, really. I feel more at home here on the island than I ever do on the mainland, so the chance to help out, even a little bit, gives me much happiness.
You've made an old lady very happy, Stan.
That's all that matters, then. As the evening drew in, Bride's crew got her ready to steam off, as more engines piled into the sheds, waiting to wish her farewell. Soon it was time, and Bride turned on the turntable to face the correct way, and she stood at the yard exit. Engines, tonight we say goodbye to an amazing colleague, a hard worker, and a friend. I present Bride of Lammermoor, the pride of New Wessex.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, everyone. I've been on this island for many decades. I've seen it through thick and thin, illness and in health, the good times and the bad. You're all a credit to this railway and the island, and I am honoured to have met and worked with each and every one of you. Now, I must take my leave. Swindon calls. I'm going home.
The engines whistled and cheered in celebration. Bride backed out of the shed complex and departed Stowmouth for the final time. The other engines watched in respectful silence. Bride was gone.
I feel like we're forgetting something. Can't have been important.